EdTech Mondays Kenya is supported by the MasterCard Foundation Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning in partnership with EdTech East Africa.
This month on EdTech Mondays Kenya, we are at the Math Excellence Camp in Riruta at the Humanitarian Educational Center. For 1 week, learners with disabilities from various schools have come together to explore mathematics in new and exciting ways. This is such a unique and inspiring experience because in Kenya today, thousands of children and young people with disabilities are still locked out of quality education, especially in critical subjects like mathematics. In this edition, we spotlight the Action Foundation's Kuza program through which they're working to change this story. Their vision is simple but powerful: a fully inclusive Africa where learners with disabilities are not just supported, but empowered to thrive and lead. Hello and welcome to EdTech Mondays Kenya. My name is Ian Wafula. Before we delve into how technology, inclusive teaching, and community partnerships can unlock potential for learners who are too often left behind, here are some key terms that you will hear throughout this edition. The first term is inclusive education. This is an approach to teaching that ensures all learners, including those with disabilities, learn together in the same environment with the right support and resources. Next, we have assistive technology tools. These range from simple learning aids to digital applications that help learners with disabilities participate fully in education. We also have STEM, which is short for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. A focus on building skills in these fields which are critical for problem solving, innovation, and future careers. The fourth is numeracy. This is the ability to understand and work with numbers. In this context, it goes beyond arithmetic to include problem solving and applying math in everyday life. And finally, we have equity in education. This is ensuring that every learner has access to the same opportunities and outcomes by removing the barriers that disadvantage some groups, particularly learners with disabilities. Let us now speak to Maria Omare from the Action Foundation to find out how they're working to end exclusion and discrimination towards children and youth with disabilities in marginalized communities. Maria, thank you so much for making time for us. First of all, tell us a bit about Action Foundation and what you do.
The Action Foundation is a Kenyan NGO, and our goal is to improve the quality of life of children and youth who have a disability. We have a life cycle approach from child health and development to foundational learning, which brings us here today, and finally adolescent and youth empowerment.
Yeah. One of the programs that I'm pretty interested in is the Kuza program. Pretty unique. Tell us a bit about it.
Kuza is a program that aims to support the skilling as well as mentorship of children and youth who have a disability. We do that from the early grades all the way till when they're youth. We have STEM programming for adolescents. We have digital skilling for youth who have a disability. And finally, we start them early, like what we're doing here with the Math Bootcamp, just getting them interested in STEM, so that can increase their likelihood of taking STEM subjects when they're older.
And one of the activities that I've actually seen is that they're learning in a bus. Mm-hmm. How did that come about?
Wow, so I'm super duper proud of our STEM bus. It's over a year old now. So how we started the STEM bus initiative was because we realized that the need for what we are doing vis-a-vis what we're able to do in our schools in different parts of the country is enormous. So we took a old bus, we took out all the chairs, and we went through a whole exercise of fabrication to make it accessible. We introduced a hydraulic lift, and voila, we had an inclusive mobile STEM lab. And the whole idea is to bring STEM to communities. Like right now we're in Dagoretti at Humanitarian Education Center, just to reach those who are farthest left behind with accessible, inclusive, and fun STEM.
What happens each time you open the door and these kids are going into the bus to learn? What does that feel like?
When people see the bus, it's colorful, fun, exciting, it's well animated, so it looks really amazing. So everybody's super curious what happens inside there. So once they get into the bus, either through the hydraulic lift or through the staircase, and they get into, they're like, wow, this is really amazing. There's enough and there's sufficient and accessible seating space for everyone. And then we even have a screen, we have different digital devices. So it's really, I'd say, one of a kind experience for everyone. And when we launched the bus last year, during the International Day for Persons with Disabilities, it was quite an exciting activity. The kids couldn't wait to get onto the bus. So it's something that is making sciences exciting for all children, including those who have a disability.
Yeah. Let's talk about mathematics particularly, because many children overall, and I remember even myself back in primary school, I struggled with that. Yeah. So what unique barriers or challenges do children who are able differently actually face?
Math can be particularly challenging for learners who have a disability because of how it's taught and how they learn. The traditional way of teaching math is stand and deliver, almost lecture style, which is hard for any other student. But when you add the layer of having a disability, it's even more difficult. So we are strong advocates for inclusive teaching methodologies that can make math exciting for everyone. In addition to the math camp that you have here today, we also have exciting math stories that we develop with support of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, RTI, as well as different teachers and curriculum developers, because we wanted to make math exciting through storytelling, because everyone loves stories. So the other way of making math exciting is through innovations like our mobile STEM bus, where learners are engaging in different hands-on activities to learn basic math concepts like mathematics, geometry, subtraction, in a way that speaks to them and makes it easier to understand, because we believe that math is for everyone, and there is this perception that because a child has a disability, there is that perceived incapability, they cannot learn much.
Yeah, and of course technology is now playing a great part in education. So how are we using tech to, one, bridge the gap, but also promote inclusive learning?
Yeah, so technology is a huge part of our work at the Action Foundation. We've been able to leverage technology by introducing interactive math stories for learners with and without disabilities. We've used technology, especially Scratch, which is a very simplified coding language, where learners can make simplified stories and animations for them to understand math concepts. So technology plays a huge deal. Everybody loves tech, and especially in the 21st century right now, the digital exclusion can mean that persons with disabilities will remain even further behind. So by leveraging technology for learning, we're able to bridge that gap between those who have a disability and those who do not.
And looking forward, the learners have been spending some time in this Maths Excellence Camp. What do you hope they take home at the end of the day?
So because of how we've tailored our math lesson through our mobile STEM lab, we hope that the learners can, one, just remember some of the concepts that they were taught today. Secondly, that they can continue with that spirit of innovation within this partner school. It isn't a one-off interaction. We are still in touch with the teachers, we're in touch with the school administration. So we're still looking at ways we can leverage technology for continuous learning and incorporation of exciting ways of learning math within the usual classroom experience. So it isn't a one-off affair. But from the math camp, we hope that at least what they learned today can forever be ingrained in their minds, and they can always remember what they.
And Maria, what does the future look like when it comes to the Kuza program? Are we looking at more buses? Because I think that would be pretty cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, so we hope we can have more buses, but that means more funding. So we are trying, while we still have one bus, we are hoping that it can be able to be utilized in multiple counties. The Action Foundation has so far worked in more than 25 counties in our STEM interventions. We had a program that supported adolescents who have a disability to learn STEM in an inclusive way. So we hope that we can have regional math excellence camps. We're in Nairobi now. Next time, who knows, you could be in the northern region, the coastal region, the western region, etc. So even with one bus, you have big dreams, just being able to move around the country and reach more students.
Okay, that's very awesome. I wish you the best.
Thank you.
Well, you heard about the bus from Maria. I certainly do not want to miss out on the bus experience. So let's now hear from Dylan Ojuka, who's one of the learners, to hear about how he loves being in this bus. Mambo.
Poa.
Leo nilikuwa ukisoma hapa kwa basi, mlikuwa mnasoma nini?
Tulisoma maths. Tukawatch kwa TV.
Uliwatch nini?
Tunaona ile TV pale. Tulikuwa tuliwatch. Mpaka makamera ikatushika.
Kamera zikawashika.
Eh.
Wewe unapenda kusoma kwa hii bus? Kwa nini?
Because sisi tuko na tablet, na book, na pencil, ndio wale walimu. Sisi tulikuwa tunafanya tunafanya. Just imagine, sisi tulikuwa tulikaa hapa, akitufundisha na blackboard iko pale. Ikatufundisha mpaka tukakaa hivi, tukifundishwa ndio.
Kati ya kusomea hapa kwa bus na kusomea kwa class, unapenda gani sana?
Kwa bus na class.
Unapenda zote mbili? Kwa hivyo unapenda kusoma kabisa? Now that was quite a fun experience to listen to, don't you think? Many people would actually find this kind of learning quite unconventional or unusual. Let us now hear from teacher Roseanne Chabere, who also doubles up as a head teacher, on why this kind of unique teaching method is effective and get to understand other teaching methods that enhance inclusive education. Hey, teacher Roseanne, thank you so much for the work you're doing here in this school. Maybe you can first of all start by telling us, why is mathematics, particularly from what we've seen, a bit difficult for children who are abled differently?
Mathematics is really difficult for those children who have disabilities because it needs the brain, and most of them have problems with the cognitive, that is counting and calculations. So it forces those children to use like PECS, picture exchange communication system, like what we've really done, which is brilliant.
You know, Teacher Roseanne, if someone ever told me that I would be able to learn in a bus, I would be very excited back in my primary school years. So how did that idea come about?
Honestly, we are also excited, so much excited, even the learners, because they're happy. And what we know, when the learners are happy, especially those who have special needs, they make the environment conducive and they are ready to get whatever we learn. When we started going to the bus, being a class, they were excited. They wanted to know what is this new.
And outside of the bus, what other tools are you using to ensure that learners who are able differently here in your school are also not being left behind?
What usually we do, we modify. This is a school whereby parents or learners from here, they're really needy. And what we usually do, we modify apparatus that we can use to. Some of them come with bottle tops for the counting and calculation. Others use other things that are available, using the available material. But now that we have such, we appreciate. Another things that we can really use for these children, not only calculating in each and every aspect, is going to use PECS, picture exchange communication system. That is key and that is important for them.
And as you introduce these learning techniques, what kind of responses are you getting from the learners?
Let me say, honestly, my learners are excited. They're happy to learn. Remember, these are learners who are very different. They are somehow different from the others. So when they see something like technology coming around, they are excited because most of them, even if they are able or not, they love homework, they love technology, so they love it so much.
In your view, what role does technology play in supporting learners with disabilities?
Technology has a great role to play. Unfortunately, some of the parents, from especially the slums, are not able to, even to have a smartphone to access the technology. And even in a classroom, especially with the CBE, right now it's the CBE. It's not a CBC any longer, whereby we are supposed to have them in our classes, of which we are not able to. So anybody anywhere who has those things to help those learners, technology-wise, kindly, you are most welcome to help them, because they really get engaged. And it has really been a source of improving their span, their attention span. Yeah.
And as a teacher, clearly I can tell you're very, very passionate about this work. What has been the most outstanding part of your job when you come here every morning?
What makes me happy, it's more of a passion to me. And I've not started today, tomorrow, last year. I started in 2010 after realizing that those parents in the slums were not able to take those learners everywhere. They were depressed, they had stigma. The attitude within the community, the stigma within the community, and that's when we started this center. And we started this 2010. The good news is, last year, 4 of our learners, whom I started with the physical disabilities, did their 4th form, and they're joining their campus the way they are. So that one gives me, strength. It gives me hope and focus, knowing that I'm changing a life somewhere, and there's a smile in their face.
That is very, very encouraging to hear, and thank you for the good work you're doing. The gaps in inclusive education need a holistic approach. Organizations like the Action Foundation cannot do it by themselves. So how about we speak to Sheila Luther from the Ministry of Education to just find out what the government is doing to ensure no learner is actually left behind. Sheila, thank you so much for making time for us. First of all, you have been working with children with disability for quite a long time. Why did you get into this space, and why was it important for you?
By training, I'm a teacher, and at a point, I advanced my studies and specialized in English literature, hearing impairment, and that entails skills in Kenya Sign Language. And that gave me a major interest in supporting children with disabilities.
And of course, now today we're looking at the role in which technology is helping learners with disabilities not be left behind. What sort of technologies are we looking at here from a government perspective?
Yeah, the ministry has really invested in technology for children with and without disabilities. We all know about the digital literacy program, where government provided laptops and tablets to learners. In the case of learners with visual impairment, we provided laptops that had a software called JAWS, an open source resource that can change voice into text. So text into voice, so that the learners are able to understand what they are doing, because they are students with visual impairment. We have other aids that we are providing through partnerships, like the Behind the Ear hearing aids. All this is towards making sure that learners with disabilities are not left behind. And also, government has gotten a lot of sponsorship from entities like the World Bank, where we have the SEKIP project that has really provided aids for schools, mobility aids, learning aids. By mobility aids, I mean the wheelchairs, walkers, crutches, and also aids for learning, the smart boards, the tablets and laptops, and other support, learner support aids in the institutions of learning.
And of course, a key part of government involvement is always policies and implementation. So maybe talk us through some of the policies that exist to actually ensure that learners are not, especially with disabilities, are not being left behind, and also at the same time they take advantage of investments in education technology.
Yeah, our mother legislation is the Constitution of Kenya 2010, which provides for education as a right to all learners, despite their abilities or inabilities, geographical areas, and other factors. And also we have the sector policy for learners and trainees with the disabilities 2018, which is anchored actually on inclusive education. And in that, one of the chapters in that policy talks about providing appropriate learning resources, and not just that adapted learning resources. That is where the adaptive technologies fall. So with that kind of backup, it is indeed it is obvious that we need to provide aids, because I may be a learner with physical impairment. I am an amputee. I need to access the laptop. I will need maybe the head and wand or any other aids. I will need to move into the ICT room on my wheelchair. So government has policies that support the adaptation and provision of aids for our learners in the institutions across all the levels, whether in early years, middle school, junior school, and even senior school that will be launching soon.
And what is government doing to ensure that children who are differently abled are not left behind than their peers? I think when I was speaking to you earlier, you said regular learners. Yeah.
The regular learner will walk into a class, sit on a desk, listen to the teacher, participate in the classroom activities. But you see, a learner with a disability, depending on the type of a disability, will need special provisions to make sure that the learner is able to benefit from the learning experiences. So what government is doing, we have a category of learners who may thrive in inclusive settings. So we are going for inclusive schools or integration mode. Then we have learners who cannot thrive in a regular classroom setting. Those learners are still being placed in the special schools. The teachers are trained in special needs education. Then we partner. Government provides capitation to the schools. We provide a top-up for free primary education. We also provide SNE top-up for free secondary education. And so what government is also doing is partnering with the like-minded stakeholders to make sure that there's provision of ATs. And about 3 years ago, the government mandated Kenya Institute of Special Education to provide assistive technologies to learners with disabilities in this country to help them to learn. So most of it is a collaborative effort. So if we get a partner or a stakeholder who is willing to support maybe students who are hearing impairment or who are deaf, we come together, we design the program, we do a surveys, needs assessment.
And speaking of partnerships and collaborations, how unique is your partnership with the Action Foundation, who are doing the KUZA program, for instance?
The Action Foundation has done well. He has done well. 3 years ago, we did a collaborative program called the Ibuka Girls in STEM, where we singled out 35 special secondary schools in the country, and we were training the girls on robotics, coding, Scratch program, and mobile app development. The Action Foundation is also running a program called Somesha that targets literacy for learners with disabilities. It's also actually just launched a numeracy program and other programs, inclusive education in the counties. And the Action Foundation is very intentional on working with government, and I would like to ask other entities or other organizations to ape that model, the public-private collaboration. It has helped us to do so much for learners with disabilities in this country.
So as we finish, Sheila, what does it look like for you when it comes to Kenya's future in terms of learners with disabilities and tech involvement as well?
The future of the Kenyan child with a disability is bright because out of collaboration, government has achieved so much that it wouldn't have achieved singly without collaboration. And you know, technology makes learning interesting. Technology bridges the gap between this child who has a disability and this child who doesn't have a disability. The services and learning experiences that a child with a disability will not have been able to do, they are now able to do. We have the smart boards for learners with mental disabilities. They are able to see content running on the smart board, and they are able to participate in different activities.
Like many other topics that we've covered here on EdTech Mondays Kenya, inclusive education also has some common myths and misconceptions. So let's take a look at some of them. The first one is that inclusive education is too expensive to implement.
Inclusive education can be cost-effective in the long run. Kenya's National Pre-Primary Education Policy of 2018 mandates inclusive learning through accessible infrastructure, teacher training, and support for assistive devices. This shows that inclusion is a national priority and not an extra cost.
The other one is that inclusive education is one size fits all and unrealistic.
Kenya's competency-based curriculum, CBC, emphasizes personalized learning, adapting teaching to each learner's needs. Inclusive education is flexible. It's designed to respond to diverse abilities rather than forcing a uniform approach.
The third myth is that learners with disabilities cannot thrive in mainstream classrooms.
With the right support, like assistive technology, trained teachers and inclusive materials, learners with disabilities can excel. Policies from the Ministry of Education and Training through KISE and Semaster promote inclusive practices to ensure learners thrive alongside their peers.
And the final myth is that policies on inclusion automatically translate to practice.
While Kenya has strong inclusive education frameworks, implementation still remains uneven due to resource gaps, infrastructure limitations, and limited teacher capacity.
Now, in case you're a parent with a child who's able differently, or you're a teacher and you're wondering how to enhance inclusive learning, let's hear once again from Teacher Roseanne how they're doing it right here. For parents who have children with disabilities back at home, or teachers who are looking to implement some of the methods you're implementing here, what kind of advice would you tell them to do, especially those who are looking for different methods at home?
In education, there has a triangle. It's the teacher, the learner, and the parent. Not unless, number one, the parents have to accept. Once a child has a delayed milestone, it's good for a parent to accept. But you find that most of our parents are still in denial. They don't accept. The first healing starts when they accept. We've realized, we've seen the milestone, we've seen the cognitive, we've seen the language, we've seen the social activities, and the development of a learner is not equal to the age mate. So when they accept that, they come, then they work as a team with the school. Whatever we are doing here should be done at home. Because once you disconnect the two, nothing can hold water.
Well, that is it for this edition of EdTech Mondays Kenya. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember to follow us on social media using the hashtag EdTech Mondays just to share your thoughts, and let's keep the conversation going. Special thanks to our sign language interpreter, Miss Rose Omolo. My name is Ian Ofula. Until next time, goodbye.
EdTech Mondays Kenya is supported by the MasterCard Foundation Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning in partnership with EdTech East Africa.